as we always start, let's start kind of from the top. What the heck are we talking about here? CI is carbon intensity. Carbon intensity is a unit of measure specifically utilized within the biofuel space or within fuels in general to quantify the carbon footprint of different fuels, whether they be fossil fuel, like gasoline, diesel fuel, jet fuel, or renewable fuels, like our ethanol, biodiesel, sustainable aviation fuel, that kind of thing. Part of the carbon footprint or carbon intensity of the fuel is driven by the intensity of the feedstock. In the case of our biofuels, we're talking about corn and soybeans primarily. And our corn and soybeans that we are producing on our farms being part of the carbon intensity of the biofuel. So, why does that matter? Well, there's a new tax credit that's due to start on January 1st. It's called 45Z, is part of the Inflation Reduction Act. And 45Z provides tax credits for biofuel producers who lower their carbon intensity score of their biofuel. Today, most of the ethanol plants speak ethanol for simplicity's sake, but it's also for biodiesel, renewable diesel, and sustainable aviation fuel. But most of the ethanol plants in the US today have a carbon intensity score of about 55, mid 50s or something. They need to get their score below 50. That's the magic number in order to get in the money. For every point that the ethanol plant ends up having their total 2025 production, for every point they end up being below 50, they will earn up to 2 cents per CI point reduced per gallon. So if they end up with a score of 45, 5 points lower than 50, at 2 cents, that's 10 cents a gallon. If their score ends up being 40, that's 10 points below 50, times 2 cents, 20 cents a gallon, and so on. So how do they do it? They can get carbon capture systems like pipelines or other utilization tactics to utilize the CO2 that would have been emitted. They could use more renewable energy or other efficiency measures, or biggest short-term opportunity at least, is buy low carbon corn and soybeans. And on the farm, we can produce low carbon corn and soybeans and quantify our footprint with the carbon intensity scores. Our footprint is driven by our utilization of fuel, fertilizer, and other energy inputs. Also majorly influenced by, did you use a cover crop? What was your tillage practices or hopefully lack thereof? Did you use manure instead of a lot of synthetic fertilizer? And overall, what was your yield? Think of it basically as every pass across the field has a carbon footprint. Divide that by the input or by the outcome of that field, the yield. And that essentially gives you your carbon intensity score. You can get that score at our topsoil tool, topsoil.ag, and you can utilize our billion bushel challenge code BBC95 to get a 95% off on your carbon intensity score, so just $25. Um, Super close to hitting another massive milestone in the billion bushel challenge. Amazing to see so many folks continuing to come and participate in this and understand what their CI score is. Just knowing your score isn't going to be good enough, though. We've got to document our farm practices, get that verified, and then from there, being able to actually get paid. We don't know all the details yet. The latest coming out of DC is, again, just more murmurs about when the new GREET model is going to come out, but no idea. Hopefully soon, but still hard to tell. But the good thing of everything that I'm hearing about the new GREET model is that they're arguing about the concept of indirect land use change. And basically, if they increase the footprint due to indirect land use change, which essentially means if not for biofuel, this ground that's grown corn maybe could be in prairie or forest or something else. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for US ag, but that's the concept. So what they would do is they would hurt the baseline CI score by an extra, could be 5 points, could be 10 points, could be who knows. Some of the other models that are utilized, the other calculators that are utilized globally, some of them discredit US ethanol by a substantial amount because of this concept of indirect land use change. But nonetheless, we anticipate that the score is going to get worse to start off. However, everything that I'm hearing is saying that they are going to credit the on-farm practices such as no-till, cover cropping, and efficient utilization of synthetic fertilizer and other inputs. So, point being is, okay, the biofuel companies likely are going to be starting from a worse position than they are today, but the farmers are going to be able to be part of the solution, meaning that they're going to allow for the soil organic carbon drawdown from our practices towards the improvement of the CI score. So it hurts the whole concept overall at the beginning, but it really rewards farmers who are paying attention, who are early adopters, who've got their data together, and farmers that are doing these practices. So get your data organized, get ready to go. We don't know when this is all going to come to fruition, but starting and by controlling what we can control is where we've got to be, which is controlling our data, controlling our scores, and making sure that we are ready to help our friends in the biofuel space because they're going to need all the low carbon corn that they can get in order to really make this go. And we got to have volume. Just having a small percentage of low carbon corn ready to go doesn't move the needle because it's based on a weighted average. The low carbon corn blended with the unknown carbon corn, meaning it'll end up being the default. So corn either has a real number or it's the default. And that default comes from the Department of Energy based on the Argonne GREET model. And that, again, is due to be updated here soon. But most counties have a default score of around 29 to 30. And we are finding that our average farmer that we have scored has a CI score of 10.9. I just got the updated numbers last night. We're at like 200, I forget exact, 247 million bushels scored with an average score of 10.9. So way better than utilizing the default. So, all right, let's crank away with a couple things here. Be sure to put your questions in the chat if you've got any questions there. Diana's got a couple notes in there about the billion bushel challenge. Also be, 249 million bushels scored. Thanks, Diana. Huge, 249 million bushels. Absolutely insane. So, but we need to be at a billion this year or more. There's about 5.4 billion bushels of corn that goes into ethanol every year, and 5.4 billion bushels. We're at 249 million, pretty darn good, but we got a long way to go. So we want to continue to make sure that our friends and neighbors are ready for this too. So, all right, let's crank through. I got a variety of questions that came in. Pam asked, do you think the payment for CRP ground will increase in the new farm bill? Oh gosh, I have no idea. And I can't speak to that. I can't answer on that. And not necessarily directly relevant in today's chat, unfortunately. Sorry, Pam, but no idea. Sean, my buddy Sean McMahon, are CI scores verified? If so, how? Or as a representative sample? Great question, Sean. So the verification is really what Continuum Ag is actually facilitating. So we basically just have created the software to allow for farmers to integrate their data, keep it in a consistent format, and get it verified. So just like there's other, consultants and there's systems that you can utilize if you're going to get verified as organic or verified for other premium markets, you got to track your data and get it through a verification system. And there's consultants and companies that can help you to do that. We are doing that, but for CI. So on the farm, every single field will have its own CI score because every field has certain practices and has a unique yield, right? So you might manage each field relatively the same, but the yield and outcome and stuff, of course, is going to be different every field, every year. So therefore, the CI score is going to be different every field, every year. And what we end up having to do at the end of the year is we've got to verify that CI score and that yield was legit. So that's what Continuum Ag is helping to facilitate. We call it CI certification, and it's $5 an acre. Okay, so the farmer pays $5 an acre. We work with you and we work with your local agronomist. If you have a good agronomist, we have our dealer network. You can connect with one of our dealers and we help and handhold the farmer to document the farming practices and to get the CI score for each field so it can be verified. So think of it as in an organic system, the verifier comes in and they say, all right, show me what you did on this field. And as long as everything is OMRI approved and meets the standards for organic, they give you the stamp of approval that you're organic and now you go sell at a premium. What we're doing for CI is we are, for every field, claiming, here was my score. Let's say, for example, like my score last year was a negative 4.1. So if I'm saying that I'm a negative 4.1, the verifier is going to say, okay, let's check the math. So they check the math, run the GREET score manually, just like we do every single time still. Okay. So farmers, when you go to topsoil, you'll see your score automatically, but we still in the back end, we're checking the scores manually to make darn sure that we are running the scores accurately and continuing to improve and fine tune the software to make sure that we are to the T. So the verifier is going to do the same thing. They're going to say, okay, negative 4.1, that's pretty good. Let's check the math. Okay, you claimed that you did all these practices. What evidence do you have to substantiate that claim? Okay, so you get audited. So it's about 1 square root of our farmers are going to be audited. We work with a local verifier out of Des Moines. And and the farmer, you opt in to sending your data to them. We don't just automatically do it. In topsoil, the farmer owns their data. So you send the data to that verifier. We send it on your behalf. When you say, yep, I want to be verified, they check the math and they take a look at the evidence that you are utilizing to substantiate your claim. So on my farm, I'm using cover crop. Well, I've got to prove that I did a cover crop. So probably utilize my receipts from my seed, probably utilize the as applied maps from my actual tractor and my as applied my shape file that I've got uploaded into topsoil. In topsoil, we have a scouting tool. You can take pictures. We can document, in a variety of ways that cover crop actually occurred. And plus, a lot of us were reporting that data to the FSA office as well for USDA programs. So maybe there's some of that cross-referencing of reports that can be done too. Additionally, we got to prove the fertilizer. So as applied maps, receipts, that kind of thing, pesticide applications, receipts, as applied maps, the yield data showing here's what my actual yield was. Some of these things are going to be hard to really prove out, right? How do I prove that I'm no-till? Or how do I prove that, that this was the fertilizer that I utilized or whatever, or the LP or the diesel fuel that I utilized? Some of these things are going to be kind of tough. At the end of the year, we anticipate that there will also have to be a farmer attestation. So you're signing off that, yes, these practices actually occurred. This was legit. And the farmer signs an attestation letter, just like we do every year for federal crop insurance. So essentially saying, I attest as a farmer that these practices did occur. Here's the proof as much as I could. And if I get audited, then I'll comply and show you whatever you need to be able to see. So definitely going to be plenty of work, but that's why we are starting now and saying, hey, let's get our data organized now to go through that. So Sean, CI scores get verified, at least through our system. We are proactively getting them verified. We're working with a local group out of Des Moines, and it's each individual field. And therefore, each field will have an allotment of bushels and a verified CI score. Then as you blend those bushels, the scores get blended as well. Tyler in the chat, how can you know how much of your value is lost as the ethanol plant moves from about 50 to under 50? So everyone going to be calling the same 5 plants that already have low CI scores and that can return the most value? That's a great question, Tyler. So, I mean, it's basically going to end up being, what I love about this is it's very transparent as far as how the math works. It's 2 cents per CI point per gallon for every point below 50, as long as you meet a couple of the pieces of red tape, right? Prevailing wage, registered apprenticeship, that kind of thing. We've got partners that help companies to overcome that. But at the end of the year. I mean, the ethanol plant might not tell us exactly what their score ends up being. Some of them are going to end up reporting that, right? Some of them that are in their shareholder reports, or some of them that are publicly traded, stuff like that. Like, there's going to be ways to figure out what their scores ended up being. But ultimately, what we know is that for every point reduced, it's 2 cents a gallon. And we know that 1 bushel of corn on average creates about 2.9 gallons of ethanol. So if you take that 2 cents times that average of 2.9, that means that every point that we reduce our score on the farm is worth about 5.8 cents per point reduced. What we might not know is exactly how those first couple points end up getting discounted, because those first couple of points, the ethanol company might not be in the money yet. Therefore, they might not pay you until you get your score below, call it a 25 or a 20 or whatever it may need to be. But if you know what your score is, and you know that that score is worth anywhere from 5.4 to 6 cents per point per bushel. I used the average math of 5.8 a little bit ago. But if I know that my score is worth 5.8 cents per point reduced per bushel to the ethanol company, now I've got a decent idea of, okay, how do we share? How do we share in that value? And how do we split the pie up and work together? And I think what's going to end up happening is, yeah, ethanol companies that are closer to 50, or companies that are helping to recruit their farmers now, companies that are on top of this, companies that are spreading the word, those guys are going to be at the starting blocks ready to rock and roll, and be able to likely pay a little bit more, pay a larger percentage to the farmer. And therefore, more farmers are going to come to the table, bringing them low carbon corn. More farmers are going to be encouraged to change practices and grow the pie. And there's going to be ample participation for those ethanol companies that are adequately compensated and sharing and being transparent and open with their farmers. And I think this is an amazing opportunity for collaboration for those ethanol companies to say, hey, farmer, either we're already at about a 50, we're ready to rock and roll, let's really make this happen. Or maybe they're not doing so well today, and they say, farmers, we got a lot of work to do, and we really need your help. We really need this low carbon corn. Help us to get below 50 here and help us to capitalize on this opportunity. And we'll share in this opportunity together and try to maximize these dollars coming back to our rural communities. So I think nonetheless, it's about knowing what your score is, knowing the value, the total pie of that score, which we show on top. So we showed the total pie, total potential value. And farmer, hopefully the share is an equitable share. I mean, it's all about sharing and about bringing these dollars back to our rural communities together. Tim in the chat, can I do commercial corn only and verify? What about verifying seed corn or beans? Nah, so seed corn, seed beans, not going to be subject to this, right? Because it's only biofuel that gets the tax credit. So the biofuel manufacturer gets the tax credit, and the biofuel manufacturer gets a tax credit in part by purchasing low carbon footprint corn and soybeans. Your seed corn or seed beans doesn't go to the ethanol plant or doesn't go to the crusher. It goes back to whoever you have your contract with growing the seed crops for. They don't get these tax credits. The biofuel manufacturers get the tax credits. You're getting paid a premium or getting paid a allotment on your contract based on what you've got set up between yourself and that company that you're growing seed for on contract. I would be telling them about this and asking them, hey, I'm doing these low carbon practices. And if I was to grow just regular corn or soybeans and sell it into the biofuel manufacturer, I could earn a premium. What do you guys want to do? And more so, not to be greedy, but it's about saying, hey, I've got low carbon crop. Would that help you guys? And hey, do we want to put a CI score on our seed corn or seed beans to say, hey, this seed was produced with a lower carbon footprint, because you're still part of their scope 3 carbon footprint. You're still, your seed that you're producing is part of their carbon footprint. Your farm is part of their carbon footprint. They don't have tax credits to pay for it, but they still might be looking to buy some of that data and compensate you for the work that you're doing. But Biofuel manufacturers get the tax credit. That's the key. So, no soil samples necessary for verification. Nope. No soil samples necessary. This is the data is just so the process is just data data going into the GREET model based upon the practices that you did on your farm. So it's simply what did the practices, what practices did you do? The GREET model is based on a county by county basis, and they have their own data collection trials and research farms that they bring the soil data in from those research farms to improve the model. Now, I just had a meeting with some of the big wigs in this space last week, and I was like, hey, a lot of farmers have soil data or have additional records on their farms or have, especially organic matter data. A lot of us have that, and a lot of us for a couple decades. If you want that, modelers, Department of Energy, some of these universities, hey, if you want that data, let's work together here and let's figure this out. But we can't just give it away. Obviously, that data is very valuable. And hey, let's improve these models over time, and maybe we do some soil sampling then, and do test and document what is going on. That let's see if we can improve these models over time. So, but no soil sample necessary in the short term. I would encourage farmers, if you do want to do some stuff, just keep doing your organic matter soil testing. Technically, what would be even better would be to utilize the dry combustion organic carbon analysis and some bulk density testing. But even with organic matter is pretty good. Curtis, thanks for the message there. Local ethanol plant saying that the CI won't happen until they get on the pipeline. It's simply not necessarily true. They can get on this CI thing before they get a pipeline. A pipeline, though, lowers your CI score by about 30 points. So it really would help them out. It would basically take their CI score from being about a 55 to a 25. And that delta between 25 and the magic number of 50, 25 points there at 2 cents, that's 50 cents a gallon and 45Z credits. So that pipeline or other carbon capture means would really move the needle. And then they could stack the low carbon corn on top of that, right? Because now they'd be at about a 55 or 25. They could continue to lower that score and get even closer to zero. What your local ethanol plant might be saying is they're not going to be able to get below 50 until they have a pipeline because their CI score is so poor today. Maybe they're already at a 60 or 62. Some of the ethanol plants have really, really poor scores. And therefore, it's going to be really tough for them to get below 50 and get in the money. And that might be what they're referring to. However, most of the ethanol plants I'm talking with are within striking distance to just collaborate with the farmers, get enough low carbon corn to get below that score of 50. Okay, so for example, most of the corn has a score of about a 29 to a 30 as a default. Like I mentioned before, we're at 249 million bushels with an average score of 10.9. Okay, so that's about an 18-point drop, right? Call it 20 points for easy math. If they're at a 60 today and they got all their farmers to help and participate, and they actually didn't just throw in the towel before the before the game has even started, if they were to collaborate with their farmers, there likely is an opportunity to lower their score by a substantial amount. And our average farmer, we're seeing there's an 18-point drop just sitting there. So if they're at a 60 today, if they can get the farmers on board, they can move the needle substantially, maybe by as much as 18 points, and definitely get below 50 and be in the money. But they're not going to be able to do it if they just sit back and wait. I believe that the carbon capture systems will probably happen at some point because it's huge money, but they're not going to happen anytime soon. And this tax credit starts on January 1st, and it's due to sunset in 2027. We can't just sit back and wait. So we got to we got to get aggressive here. Some ethanol plants aren't going to be, and a lot of the low carbon corn is going to find a different home. It's the reality of it. If they're not going to participate and you've got to take your grain further, we might have to look at options to do that. Doesn't make sense, and we don't want to do that, but unfortunately, if certain ethanol plants aren't getting going on this, that low carbon corn is going to find a new home. And then when they do wake up that, hey, we got to get working with our farmers and make this happen, the low carbon corn's already going to have found a new home and they're going to be struggling and likely starting from an even worse position. But would love to chat with them. We've got some pretty cool tools built that I can run their numbers and show them exactly what I think their opportunity is going to be. So, all right, run out of time already. I told myself I was going to hammer through and rapid fire a bunch of questions, but uh, as you guys know, I get to talking a lot and get a little fired up about this stuff. Chris is asking, curious about crediting certification industry standards on establishing individual operators. So yeah, I kind of went through some of that. We are helping to get the CI scores at the field level, and then we pass that data to a third-party verifier upon the farmer's request to get verified. So, and this verifier that we work with, very, very good reputation in the space. They have the accreditations and things like that to be that third party and just put that stamp of approval out there. We're working with a variety of the big CPA firms and stuff as well. Make sure we really cross the T's and dot our I's. Michael's asking, do you think it will cause a new market for corn that doesn't meet a minimum CI score? Yeah, maybe. So basically what he's saying is the low CI corn could go into biofuel, the high CI corn and the high carbon footprint corn, that basically goes to a different market, which in this case would basically be the livestock industry or export or other markets that today don't ask what your CI score is. However, I'm more so thinking that this is going to cause non-biofuel industries to figure out how do they decarbonize and how do they utilize that low carbon grain? How do they keep it in their supply chain? Because this is very likely going to influence basis by potentially a substantial amount. And so they've got to figure out how do they keep that low carbon corn in their supply shed, keep it in their supply chain. And since they don't have tax credits to pay for the low carbon corn and to pay for the data, they're going to need to figure out, is there a different value add market or different type of opportunity that we can go after? Talking with a lot of non-biofuel companies that are saying, hey, we have corporate sustainability goals we need to meet. We have goals that our shareholders are putting on us to decarbonize. We have goals that our financiers are putting on us to decarbonize. We can maybe take a page out of this playbook and utilize it for our purposes. So we're talking about low carbon pork, low carbon eggs, low carbon milk, taking the concepts here from the biofuel space and making them work in a non-tax credit market. So thanks for that question, Michael. Last one here that came in this week. Rodney, don't know why anybody, oh, don't know why anybody would pay me to be in the hay business. I don't know what all that is, but this is, I think he's in talking on the hay side of things. And yes, this is a biofuel tax credit. Again, I'm bullish on the concept here of taking the scoring mechanism and taking the financial mechanism, bullish on kind of copying and pasting that to non-biofuel verticals like low carbon hay going into low carbon animals, right? Or pasture raised animals or, rotationally grazed and things like that that have a lower carbon footprint or taking, the DDGs that are coming out of ethanol that are low carbon corn, producing low carbon fuel, low carbon DDGs to feed low carbon animals, right? It's all this cyclical kind of system of producing food and fuel in a low carbon, more sustainable manner. So today it's biofuel and it impacts me too. I mean, my corn today, like 90% of the crop that we produce on our farm goes to feed pigs. I'm in Washington County, Iowa, like number one, number two pork producing county in the country. So most of our crop doesn't go to the biofuel space, but if we can earn a premium, I mean, we're talking what, $4.20 corn or whatever it is. Like, we got to figure out how to make things work here, and we've got a great story to tell, and we'd love to collaborate with folks who want to help us tell our story. And a lot of you guys in that same boat. So, last question here from the chat. Sounds like farmers could get paid for conservation practices through NRCS and still qualify for low CI payments. It's stackable, right? Yes. So Now, the real answer here is we don't know, right? With a lot of this stuff, but NRCS programs, cost share programs, coming from government entities, or even some of the sustainability programs that are pay for practice is totally fine. You're getting paid to do the practice, whether that be paid for to do the cover crop, for example, right? Versus in CI, you're getting paid for the outcome. So there's practice-based payments in the cost share, then there's outcome-based payments based on the CI. I don't think that most of the carbon credit groups are going to let you stack, but I have been hit up by a couple of them here recently that are saying that no, they're going to be able to let farmers stack and do a carbon credit program and do CI. Now, I don't know that all of them are going to be able to do that, so I worry about double dipping on two different programs that are outcome based, but practice based, stack with outcome based, that should be good to go. Stacking two different outcome based programs, I worry. If your program that you're in or one that's recruiting you, if they do say, nope, we'll let you stack, I would be getting that in writing and getting it in writing from them that they sign off saying you're good to participate in a CI program or a different value added grain program. I guess I've tried to make it broad, and happy to help with that. We haven't gone through that process yet, but I've started that conversation with multiple companies that are coming to me trying to recruit our farmers into their carbon program. I'm like, okay, if you're going to allow for stacking, we got to have it in writing. It's got to be in legal documentation because I do not want our farmers attempting to take on that liability. So, um, if they are going to allow you to stack, get it in writing. So, anyway, we're over time here already. Appreciate you guys. A lot of good questions here today. Be sure to tune in next week. We'll be back. Likely going to be doing some additional Q&A stuff the from the cab of a tractor here. We started planting beans on our farm yesterday. So exciting stuff going on. Hopefully it was the right move. It was a toss up here based on the weather coming in, but uh, I always joke they don't grow in the bag. So hopefully our cover crop really helps us out here this year. Those beans are in a good spot. Anyway, thanks everyone for joining. Have a good day. We'll see you next time.